Hey y'all, welcome to today's video. This is the Fragrance Hall of Fame tag, and I'll talk about the tag part in a minute, but these are the best perfumes of all time. So this is a tag that was created by Sharida M here on YouTube. I'll link her channel below. I came across her channel sometime last year and have been thoroughly enjoying her content. She's lovely. She's got a great sense of humor, and boy, does she tell some fantastic stories about people's reactions to fragrance, good, bad, or indifferent, including stories of men chasing women down to ask what they're wearing. And I love them. They're so entertaining. So around the holiday time, she created this tag, and the only rule was that you cannot talk about Delina or Baccarat Rouge 540, which isn't a problem for me. I am not the biggest fan of Delina. I think it's a nice fragrance, but it doesn't really float my boat the way it does others. Baccarat Rouge 540 is fantastic. I have 9,486 dupes of it that I think you all know I'm trying to whittle down to 2 or 3. Good luck to me with that. So I was trying to think about how do I want to do this tag, because I did my own sort of top 10 video, top 10 for life video right before the holidays. I did the best blind buys of the year. I've done all of those sort of top videos. So I wasn't quite sure the spin to put on this one. And then it occurred to me, I wanted to do for the Hall of Fame, those fragrances that I have worn in yesteryear. By the way, today is my birthday. So happy birthday to me. I am 48 years old, and I grew up wearing fragrance all throughout the 80s, the 90s, into my early adulthood and into now. And so I have lots of fond memories of fragrances throughout the year, including a lot of the big powerhouse bombastic fragrances of the 80s and 90s, and some that were made in the 70s that stayed popular through the 80s, 90s, and so forth. Anyway, so the idea for me for this tag, my own sort of personal spin on it, is I'm going to share with you 5, that's the other rule, it had to be 5 fragrances that for me have withstood the test of time. It was really hard to narrow down to just 5. I have a vintage shelf that is off camera there, where I keep bottles of fragrances that I wore in my youth, in the earlier part of my life, that I keep for nostalgic reasons. So I had to really think about, of those, which would be the 5 that I would be most likely to wear today and that I have worn in recent years. There are some others that I have just to sort of sniff the nozzle, to remember the times associated with that fragrance. But these are the 5 that really stand out as still, in my mind, to me, being beautiful today and worthy of being worn. Because I have so many fragrances, I want to pull a fragrance for the day that I'm going to really enjoy wearing for that day. So it's got to be special in some way. Can you tell I'm hesitating? Because there were some I wanted to include that I could not, because there were only 5. And by the way, I did do an 80s video and a 90s video. So I would encourage you to go check those out. I'll link those in the comments if you want to hear more extensive details about these fragrances. Okay, let's jump in. I'll start off with the iconic queen herself, Chanel No. 5. I know this is a polarizing fragrance. People either love her, hate her, or have never smelled this fragrance. By the way, I highly suggest trying this out, even if you never purchase a bottle. It's such an iconic fragrance, one that so many people wore, particularly women, the matrons, the matriarchs, the matrons. What is that? That's like a transformer, like Decepticon with the, anyway, whatever. How did I combine those words? Chanel No. 5, one that many of the matriarchs, I wanted to say, in my family wore for many years. I'm very familiar with this smell, used to it, can probably pick it up on people anywhere. And this is my second bottle of it, and I'm making my way through. I don't wear this often. This is one certainly that you have to be in the mood for wearing. It is known for being a classic aldehydic fragrance, meaning that it has notes in it that come across clean and sparkling sometimes. There are some beautiful buttery florals in here, both yellow and white florals, and a slight woodiness to this that I think makes this a really nice balance between the 3. The cleanliness, the floral aspects, and the woodiness in here. I find this to be an elegant fragrance. Some people like to think of it as dated. I don't think so at all. I can see how people think that. So let me be clear. When people say that, I say to myself, yeah, I can see how they think that. So I'm just speaking about myself, my own impressions, my personal opinion. I do not think that this is dated, and I still think that this is very relevant for today. It's one that I really would not hesitate to wear to the office or to an evening affair. I think it's appropriate for many occasions. And quite frankly, I find this to be a very pleasant and non-offensive fragrance. Number two is a fragrance that I hunted down for forever because I wanted an original bottle. It was really important to me to get an original. There is a current day formulation of this that is a little bit more weak and watered down. We're talking about Private Collection from Estee Lauder. So excited to have this. And one of the fragrances that, and I don't say this about a lot of fragrances, that I don't reach for often because I'm scared to suck the juice down, knowing I probably will not be able to locate another vintage bottle of this for a long time. I have really fond memories of this fragrance being a green, earthy fragrance. I'm talking about that quintessential smell of wet earth after a summer rain. And I'm talking about summer because it's hot, right? So you get there's something about the earth thawing, the hotness. What the heck am I talking about? There's something about heat coming up out of a wet earth in the summertime that's very different than a winter rain. Winter rains, in my mind, are a little bit more like ethereal and maybe even metallic in the air. That summer thunderstorm kind of air, and what you get rising up from the earth as the steam comes up when the sun comes back out, that smell, that earthy smell, combined with some herbs and that wet garden kind of thing in here is really unique. Not for everyone, but definitely a smell that is very, very attractive to me, intriguing, and one that I find kind of dreamy. It makes me feel really grounded, and it has sort of that effect. If you've ever smelled Azuri, which I think is also made by Estee Lauder, if I remember correctly, there's something earthy in that fragrance that kind of you smell parts of that in here. They're not the same kind of fragrance, but that same earthy aspect. Anyway, this is a beauty, one that even when people talk about vintage fragrances, they don't bring up often, but I find it to be so beautiful, both then and now. As I sniff it, it feels very relevant. Very evocative. It makes me want to wear it, and it makes me crave that summertime, beautiful after rain air. Then a mid 90s icon that I think is one of those fragrances, when I smell this on someone, I know immediately they are wearing Pleasures, again from Estee Lauder. So I know that Estee Lauder, as a house of fragrances, I'm not talking about the houses that they've purchased, right? I'm talking about the original sort of Estee Lauder line of fragrances. Doesn't get a lot of love on YouTube or really anywhere. Anywhere. I'm not sure why. There's a beautiful lineup of fragrances that are apart from the norm, a little bit different than what else is out there. And check it out if you want to try new fragrances that might smell like something you haven't smelled before. This one is unique. I don't have anything else in my collection that's quite like this. A real sort of powerhouse floral that is at the same time fresh and all encompassing. This is a fragrance. When you hug someone with Pleasures, the ring of scent almost comes around you past the person's arms and hugs you too. I have a friend of mine that wears this fragrance, and I just love it when she comes to dinner with us because I'm like, oh, you have that on, don't you? And there's a nostalgia around this for me. It was a fragrance that came out while I was in my college years, and it was the it fragrance girl for my college circle of friends, including all of the other Victoria's Secret fragrances that were making the rounds at that time. Hello, who remembers pear? How do you say that? Glacé? That one? I have that. I have the spray, the body spray of that, and I have the lotion in my closet because that brings back a lot of memories too. But anyway, this one has a host of florals in it, mostly white florals, lily of the valley, peony, lilac, lily, rose, a bunch. There's a bunch of florals in here. I'm looking down at my notes here because there's so many. So anyway, this one, I probably am on bottle, I don't know, number 3 or 4 or something at this point, past whatever I went through in college. So all the ladies in my family have a bottle of this. Perhaps one of the most memory evoking fragrances that I can put in this lineup. And again, remember, I mean, I'm torn because there were so many I wanted to include. But anyway, 5 fragrances, Veronica, 5. Number 4 in the lineup here is Calvin Klein's Escape. So people have talked about this being reformulated. If you've never smelled this, the original, I don't know that it's been reformulated or not. I think that this is close enough to the original, if there is a reformulation, that it doesn't bother me. It's enough. Like, it does the job. I don't even know how to describe this fragrance to people. When I look at the note structure, the notes just don't make any sense to me compared to what I smell in this or what it reminds me of. For me, this takes me to ocean air by the beach. And I'm talking about like a late evening breeze coming off of the ocean. There's a saltiness to it. There is a spiciness. There are herbal aspects of this. It's aromatic in very many ways. It is an iconic scent that no matter who's wearing it or where they are, I'm like, that person has escape on. The closest thing that I've come to, there was something I tried recently, a sample of something where I thought, oh my gosh, that smells a little bit like Escape, and I can't think of what it is now. But then also, I hesitate to say this because I know someone's going to go, oh my God, they're nothing alike. Greenwich Village by Bond Number 9, there is an aspect of that, not the fragrance itself, but there is something in that that kind of could be like a cousin to this in terms of that airy, aromatic type of, I don't know how to describe it. It's so indescribable. This is at the same time airy and light as it is dense, thick, and overpowering. It's all of those things at once, sort of defies description. And I just adore this. You definitely have to be in the mood to wear this. And if you ever decide to try this, I suggest spraying once or twice. Don't be like me and spray 9,000 times and create like a nuclear fallout. I've done that. This is no doubt to me one of the most beautiful fragrances of all time, bar none, and has stood the test of time for sure. This bottle looks relatively new because I went through many bottles of this as a youth and recently purchased this one here, particularly when I started thinking about 80s and 90s fragrances I wanted to bring back into my collection. Escape. And the fifth fragrance, and these were really in no particular order, I'm going to go with L'Eau d'Essai from Issey Miyake. Another one that came out in the 90s that was the it girl during college. That fragrance, when people wore this, you knew she's got Issey on. L'Eau d'Essai, L'Eau d'Essai, L'Eau d'Essai. That fragrance. It features a prominent lotus note, but here's what I can tell you about it despite the description. This is one of the most aquatic in my mind scents that I've ever smelled. It reminds me very much of water, fresh notes, lots of clean notes like cleanliness. It reminds me of cleanliness. It reminds me of the freshest, sharpest laundry detergent. It reminds me of beautiful white florals. It reminds me of just all things watery and clean and pretty. Very strong fragrance, very overpowering if you put too much of it on. But boy, it was the it girl. When people wore it, you knew the person was in the room. You knew that that girl was freshly showered and she was ready to go out dancing because she had her L'Eau d'Essai on. Absolutely gorgeous fragrance. Again, another one that people say has been reformulated. I believe this is an older bottle. This is an eau de toilette, but I'll tell you that this performed like some sort of parfum, like strong parfum concentration. And I don't know, just one of the freshest, cleanest, strongest smells. Nothing light about this. This was like an in-your-face powerhouse. So those are my 5. Wondering if you have worn these, and if so, are they scents that you would wear today, or do you consider these to be dated scents that should be kept on a vintage shelf? Would be curious to hear your thoughts and feedback on that. Take care, friends. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.